The Dacia Striker 4x4 is the cheapest way to actually leave the road. Not to look like you might, to genuinely do it. For 2027, Dacia has taken its clever new crossover estate, added drive to all four wheels, and priced the whole thing where rivals still charge for a basic front-wheel drive hatchback. Almost nobody else builds a proper, terrain-ready 4x4 this cheap anymore. The trick that makes it possible is hiding at the back of the car, and it is genuinely clever. Here is how it works, because the how is the entire story. On this version, Dacia does not run a heavy prop shaft down the spine of the car to drive the rear wheels. Instead, it bolts a separate electric motor straight onto the rear axle. When the front wheels start to slip on mud, wet grass or snow, that rear motor wakes up in an instant and pushes from behind. You get real, on-demand all-wheel drive, with none of the weight or fuel penalty of the old mechanical way. It is 4x4 capability, delivered by the same electric thinking that powers the hybrids. To see why that matters, look at what has happened to the affordable off-roader. The cheap, rugged 4x4, the kind Dacia itself made famous with the Duster, has been quietly vanishing from showrooms for years. Real all-wheel drive drifted steadily up market, tangled up with big engines and even bigger price tags. Most so-called crossovers on sale today cannot actually pull themselves up a wet grass field. The Striker 4x4 is Dacia planting a flag back in that abandoned ground, and it does so with clever electric hardware rather than heavy, expensive mechanical complexity. And Dacia did not stop at simply sending power rearward. This 4x4 comes with proper terrain modes, tuned for snow, for mud, and for sand, each one quietly rewriting how the car hands out its grip. The ground clearance climbs to 20 centimeters, enough to clear ruts and rocks that would beach an ordinary estate. There's even a downhill speed control that eases you gently down a slippery slope, holding a crawl so you never have to stab at the brakes. This is not soft roader marketing. It is a small, honest toolkit for genuinely rough ground. Picture where that toolkit actually earns its keep. A farmer's rutted lane in February, a gravel campsite after a solid week of rain, a mountain road the council has not yet gridded. These are the exact moments an ordinary hybrid estate gives up and spins its front wheels helplessly. The Striker 4x4 stays calm, quietly shuffles power to whichever wheels still have grip, and simply carries on. Dacia pitches this extreme version straight at outdoor life, at the buyer who loads up bikes, tents, and muddy boots and points the car at the hills. It is built to be used hard, then hosed down and used hard all over again the next weekend. You would half expect a car like this to look apologetic, but it does the opposite. Finished here in a deep new cosmic blue, it wears the toughest version of Dacia's fresh design, the trim they call Extreme. That means squared-off arches and thick lower cladding made from a raw, recycled material called Starkle. It is left deliberately untreated, so a scrape from a rock or a branch simply wipes clean and disappears. Up front and out back sit Dacia's brand new T-shaped lights, planted at all four corners, split by the new Dacia Link badge. It looks ready for a job, not a car park. Walk around it, and the tough theme holds everywhere you look. At the back, a full-width black panel carries the word Dacia in raised capital letters, framed by those new T-shaped taillights. Integrated bars run the whole length of the roof, ready for a box, a tent, or a pair of bikes. The wheels are pushed hard into each corner for a planted, sure-footed stance, sitting under those squared, protective arches. Nothing on this car is chrome or delicate. Every surface looks chosen because it could survive a decade of dogs, kids, and foul weather, which, knowing Dacia, is exactly the brief the designers were handed. Underneath the rugged armor, though, this is still fundamentally a long, practical estate. The Striker stretches 4.5 meters end to end, yet stands barely 1.5 meters tall, far lower than the SUVs it undercuts. That low roof is not just for looks. It keeps the fuel bills down and hides a huge amount of usable space. The boot swallows 600 liters with the seats up, and a flat 1,600 with them folded. So this is a 4x4 that will haul a family, their luggage, and a muddy dog, then still climb a snowy track at the end of it. Climb inside and the same rugged honesty carries straight through. A 10.1-inch touchscreen runs your phone through wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so there is no clumsy built-in software to fight with. Below it, mercifully, sit real physical buttons for the heating and switches on the wheel where your thumbs expect them. But the smartest touches are the surfaces. The Extreme trim uses a wipe-clean upholstery Dacia calls TEP, and floors the cabin with rubber mats made partly from recycled material. Drop wet boots, sandy kit, or a soaked rucksack in here, and you just hose it out and move on. And for all that ruggedness, it stays a properly usable family car inside. The driving position sits you up high, with a commanding view over the bonnet and down the track ahead. There is genuine room in the back for adults, not just children, and clever storage dotted right around the cabin for the clutter of real life. The center console alone holds close to 7 liters of odds and ends. You get the tall and charged feeling people buy SUVs for, wrapped in a body that is cheaper to buy, cheaper to fuel, and far more willing to get properly dirty. If a genuine, affordable 4x4 that shrugs off abuse is the kind of car you have been waiting for, then subscribe and stay with me, because the price is where this really lands. Now, the engine. Because the 4x4 does something different from its hybrid sister. Under the bonnet sits a small 1.2-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine, helped along by a mild hybrid system running on a compact battery. A starter generator smooths the stops and starts and adds a gentle electric shove, letting the car coast and creep on electricity for a good chunk of town driving. It sends its power through a 6-speed automatic gearbox and makes around 150 horsepower all in. That rear electric motor then fills in the 4x4 ability on top. It is a neat, layered solution to a hard problem, done on a Dacia budget. On the road, that mild hybrid layer does quiet, useful work. It lets the engine switch off completely as you coast down to a junction, then feeds in a little electric torque as you pull away again. That takes the strain off the small petrol unit at its weakest moment. Dacia reckons the car can lean on electric assistance for a real slice of everyday town driving. You will not glide in near silence the way the full hybrid does, but the stop-start city grind feels smoother and a fraction cheaper than a plain petrol car crawling through the same commute. So here's the number that ties the whole thing together. The Striker range starts at under 25,000 in pounds or in euros, and even in this clever 4x4 form it stays remarkably close to that. Think about what that actually buys. A genuine all-wheel drive family car with terrain modes, 20 centimeters of clearance, and a 600-liter boot for roughly the money a mainstream brand asks for a basic front-drive runabout. There is simply nothing else on sale that hands you real off-road hardware this cheaply. That is the entire reason this version exists. Try to shop it against something similar, and the list runs short, fast. A small SUV with real all-wheel drive from a mainstream badge costs thousands more and often gives you a smaller boot for the money. A proper ladder frame off-roader costs more again and drinks far harder at the pumps. The nearest thing to a genuine rival is the Striker's own SUV sibling, the Bigster, which shares this exact 4x4 hardware in a taller, boxier suit. Beyond that, the affordable end of the all-wheel drive market is mostly empty. That emptiness is precisely the gap Dacia built this car to fill. But honesty matters, so here is the trade you are making. To go 4x4, you give up the smooth, near-silent full hybrid that the front-wheel drive Striker enjoys. This little turbo 3-cylinder is gruffer, it works harder, and it will drink a touch more fuel than its efficient sister when you push it. The mild hybrid softens the edges, but it never fully hides the fact that a small engine is hauling a tall all-wheel drive car. You are paying in refinement and running costs for the ability to go where the smooth one cannot. That is the deal laid bare. And it is a deal that, for the right buyer, makes complete sense. Maybe you live at the end of a rough track, or chase the snow every winter. Maybe you just want the reassurance of drive to all 4 wheels, without remortgaging your house to get it. For all of those people, nothing else on sale comes close on price. The Dacia Striker 4x4 does not pretend to be a hardcore off-roader. It just quietly gives ordinary families a genuine one, for the money everyone else wants for a school-run hatchback. Do not file this away as a cheap crossover. File it as the return of the affordable, do-anything, go-anywhere family car. A thing the industry had all but decided you were no longer allowed to have. That is a genuinely rare event in 2027, and it is worth pausing on. For a decade, we were told that going anywhere meant paying premium money. This small, blue, muddy Dacia calls that bluff, on a budget, and quietly hands the keys back to ordinary people.